Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this basket here. It stands up on its own. You don't have to do anything to it to make it stand. It's because of the yarn is a thick yarn. Well, I'll go ahead and take some measurements for you. Mine stands approximately a little over 7 inches tall. And I don't know, I had to guess it's about a foot wide or so, something like that. I guess I could measure across the top, but oh yeah, about a foot, something like that. Okay, so it's made with a knit stitch. As you can see, it's a crochet. It's single crochet, but it's made just a little bit differently to make it look like it's knitted. It's not a hard stitch to do. I think this would be good for a beginner as long as you know the basic stitches, but I'm not going to lie. Using the thick yarn like this and a big hook kind of does hurt your hands a little bit, but not too bad. But it's pretty easy to do. Like I said, mainly the single crochet knit stitch, which I'll show you how to do that. This is slip stitch up here around the edge. But other than that, I think it's pretty cool. I don't know what I'm going to use mine for. I think I might use mine to maybe set it on my desk and put yarn scraps in. But that's it. Let's go ahead and get started on this. Okay, for this project, am using Yarn Bee. This is from Hobby Lobby. It's called their Stretch Taffy. Now the color I'm using is called Lollipop. Now it's classified as a super bulky 6. Definitely not a super bulky 6. It's like a jumbo number 7 yarn. It's a 50 polyester, 50 acrylic blend, and there's 49 yards per hank. It comes in a hank, and this is what it looks like here. As you can see, that's bigger than a 6. I would say that's more like a jumbo 7, and it's not spun. It's not wound. It's kind of just unwound like that. Now you can find this, you don't have to use this brand. I mean, you can find it other places. Any bulky or jumbo number 7 will work. Now you can use a number 6 weight yarn, but you'll just have to make the base, you'll have to increase the base to make it bigger. And you'll definitely want to use a smaller hook. Now the hook that I used is a 25 millimeter crochet hook. Okay? If you're going to be using a size 6, I would recommend a 9 or a 10 millimeter crochet hook. But remember, you'll have to make your base smaller, and I don't really know how much yarn you're going to need. But there were 49 yards per hank of this, and this is what I have left of my second. So you're going to need two 49 yarn hanks to finish this out, or approximately probably 85 yards of it. And then again, I said I'm going to be using the 25 millimeter crochet hook. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start off with the slip knot on our hook. I always leave just a little bit longer of a tail, not extremely long, 6 or 8 inches. That way I can weave it in better at the end. Because with this thicker yarn, you got to use your hook to weave it in. Well, I do anyways, because I don't have a yarn needle big enough for this. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a chain of 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch here to form a ring. Just like that. Now we're going to do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So we're going to work 6 single crochets through the center of the ring. We're working on the base of the basket now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. You might have to scoot them over a little bit as you go. There's 5. And there is 6. So you can pull that tail, close up that circle a little bit, and then we can close it up later a little bit better. So now you got your 6 single crochets. Now you're going to need some type of stitch marker to keep your spot. I'm actually just going to use a piece of yarn. That's what I always use as a stitch marker. So we're going to be working in continual rounds, which means we're not going to be slip stitching to end our round. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker here after my 6th single crochet. Now I'm going to jump to the first single crochet over here. So what that does, that ends round 1 of the base, and you'll have 6 single crochets. I'm going to jump to the first single crochet over here, not the chain 1, which was right here, but the first single crochet. I'm going to jump to that, go into it, and I'm going to put 2 single crochets into it. So we're working on round 2 now. So there's 1, and there's 2. I'm going to put 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way back to my stitch marker. The main thing you want to kind of just watch when you're working with this big yarn, well, for me anyways, I find it best if you don't get your stitches like super tight. It tends to lay better if they're not like extremely tight. But I'm going to work around, and I'm putting 2 single crochets in every stitch. And once you get to working with this, you'll find that it becomes a little easier. You may feel like it's a little bit of an inconvenience at first. I know I do. But you'll get the hang of it, and then you'll just breeze right through this. So we're working this 2 singles until we get to our stitch marker, which I'm almost there. So I'll just go ahead and finish up till I get there. All right, I made it back to my stitch marker. Now you should have 12 single crochets. And I do, and that'll end round 2. Now we're going to go ahead and pull our stitch marker up and put it right here. Now we'll start round 3. This stitch marker helps us know where we begin and where we end. So we're going to jump to the next stitch. For round 3, we're going to put 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And then the next stitch, we will put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So there's 1, and there's 2. And that's what we're going to kind of repeat now for round 3. So we're going to put 1 single crochet into the next. And then we're going to put 2 single crochets into the next stitch. So there's 1 and 2. And we're going to repeat this all the way around for round 3. 1 single into the next, and then 2 singles. 1 single into the next, and then 2 singles. All the way around until we get back to our stitch marker. Alright, I have made it to the back around to my stitch marker, and I made it to the end of round 3. You should have ended with 2 single crochets there in your last stitch, and now you should have a total of 18 stitches. Let's go ahead and start by round 4 by pulling our stitch marker out and putting it right back up here to the top. Okay, so round 4 is we're going to put 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So put 1 into the next, and then 1 into the next, and then the next stitch we'll put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And that's the repeat for round 4. So again, we're going to put 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2, and then the next stitch we're going to put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And I'm going to repeat this all the way around for round 4. 1 single, 1 single, 2 singles, 1 single, 1 single, 2 singles, all the way around until I get back to my stitch marker. Alright, I've made it to the end of round 4, and you should have ended with 2 single crochets there in your last stitch, and now you should have 24 stitches. So I'm going to do one more round of increases. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my stitch marker up to start round 5. And now I'm going to start by putting 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So 1 in the next 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. And that's kind of repeat. I'm going to repeat now for round 5. 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and then 2 singles into the next. If it looks like I'm struggling, I'm not really struggling. It's not hard, really. It's just I'm struggling it's so big, trying to keep it in front of the camera. It's not really hard to crochet, but it's just keep it in front of the camera that's kind of hard. There we go. So I'm going to repeat that now, that pattern for round 5. 1 single into the next 3. So single, 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 and then 2 singles into the next. Single, 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 2 singles into the next, all the way around until I get back over here to my stitch marker. Alright, I have made it to the end of round 5. You should have a total of 30 stitches, and you should have ended with 2 single crochets there into that last stitch. Now, I'm not going to do any more increases. If you want to keep increasing in the same manner that we have been to make your basket bigger, that's fine. Just remember you'll need more yarn though than what I said. But right now my base measures approximately 11 inches, just about. Okay, so now I'm going to start by round 6 by moving my stitch marker up. I'm going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch, but I'm going to put it in the back loop only. So you see how your stitch has 2 loops. The one closest to you is your front loop, and the one furthest away is your back loop. So on round 6, I'm only going to be working in the back loops. That's the only round that we're going to only be doing that. So skip this first loop of the stitch and just go into that back loop. So you'll only have 1 loop on your hook and single crochet into it. Just like that. Now I'm going to do that to every stitch all the way around. So I'm going to jump to my next stitch, back loop only, and single crochet. So we're not increasing anymore. Go to the next stitch, back loop only, single crochet. Next stitch, going in a back loop only, and single crochet. And I'm going to repeat this all the way around until I get back to my starting point. And when you look, it kind of just gives you that ridge there. It's just kind of to show a separation between the base and the main portion of the basket. Now you don't have to do that. It'll still turn out the same if you don't do that, but it just kind of gives a little decoration, a little line there to show you that there is a separation between the base and the basket. So round 6 is 1 single crochet in every stitch, working in the back loop only. And I'm going to do this until I get back to my stitch marker. Alrighty, I made it back to the end of round 6 and I still should have 30 stitches. So you should always have 30 stitches now. I'm going to go ahead and pull my stitch marker up. Now what we're going to do is round 7 is going to be the repeat round for the whole basket. We're going to be working single crochets, but we're not going to be working it like normal. Normal single crochet, you would go into the top 2 loops like that. We're not going to do that. We are going to go, you see this single crochet here? We are going to go in between these 2 loops here. And it's a little bit tight, but you can do it. So take your hook, don't go into the top of it. Go kind of in between these little stitches right there. Like that. And then you do your single crochet. Like that. And then we jump to the next one and we need to work in between these stitches right here. So it's not going into the top of the stitch right here. We're working in between that right there. So wiggle it in and then do a regular just do your single crochet. So it's a single crochet, we're just doing it in a different spot and it just gives it a different appearance. So again, go to the next one. Normally you would go right in the top of the stitch. We're not going to do that. We're going to work in between these little spots right here of the single crochet. You got to wiggle it through because like I said, it does get a little tight sometimes. Wiggle it back through gently. Just like that. Jump to your next one. Wiggle it through. And single crochet. Like that. The next one, in between these little spots right here. Wiggle it through. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And pull it back through like that. And then single crochet. And that's what we're going to do all the way around. This is the knit stitch. It's supposed to mimic the knit, like your knit. It's supposed to mimic the knit, like you have a knitted item. But it's real easy to do. Right, but here's my next stitch. Do not go into it here like normal. Wiggle in between these 2 parts of the stitch. So wiggle, 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 wiggle. Wiggle, wiggle. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and do your regular single crochet. And that's what I'm going to do all the way around. Go to the next one. Wiggle, wiggle. Grab it and pull it through. Just like that. Pretty easy once you get the hang of it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep wiggling through every stitch. And then wiggling through. And then pulling through and single crocheting all the way around. Until I get back to my stitch marker. Starting to get easy now. Just takes a little bit of getting used to. But once you get used to it, it'll go by quick. Just like that. So I'm going to continue that all the way around until I get back over here to my stitch marker. Alrighty, I made it to the end of round 7 and that's what it kind of looks like now. So we're going to go ahead and pull our stitch marker up and you should still have 30 stitches. Now remember, you'll always have 30 stitches. Now we're just going to keep repeating round 7. So at the end of the round, you just pull your stitch marker up and then we're just going to repeat that again. We're not going to work into the top of the next stitch. We're going to wiggle in between this little spot of the stitch here. Now, if you are having a hard time doing this, you can do regular single crochet. It'll still work. It just look a little different, but it'll still look good. This is just a different take on a single crochet. But like I said, if you're having difficulties maneuvering through there, like I am a little bit here, but I keep trying. I'm pretty relentless. I'm not going to give up here. It's fine to do regular single crochet too. But I'm just going to keep repeating around 7. Remember, we're wiggling through these 2 little spots here. That's why it's important to kind of try to keep your stitches loose a little bit with this yarn. Because if it gets too tight, it's hard to just wiggle through. going to do this until I get my piece as tall as I want it to be. Like that, so you can see how it kind of looks knitted a bit, a little different, just a little different take on it. But like I said, if it's hard for you, it's hurting your hands, it's fine to do regular single crochet. It's not gonna hurt anything at all. It just will look like regular single crochet. It just won't look quite so knitty looking, I guess. But anyways, I'm just gonna keep repeating round 7. So I'm on round 8 right now, working my single crochets like we have been, wiggling it through this part of the stitch here. And every time I get back to my stitch marker, I will always have 30 stitches, and then I'll move my stitch marker up and I'll repeat again. So I'm just going to keep repeating round 7 until I get my basket as tall as I want it to be. Now, I'm not quite sure how many rounds I'm going to do, but I'll let you know here in just a minute. How many total rounds that I do. Alright, I have made it back to my stitch marker, and I have done a total of 13 rounds, and that is starting from round 1 at the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rounds. And I made it back to my stitch marker, and I still should have 30 stitches. Now, of course, you can do yours bigger if you want, but you will need more yarn, just remember. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a slip stitch in every stitch around until I get back to my starting point. So I'm just going to go into the next stitch. You can move your marker up if you want. And I'm going to slip stitch. Like that. And I'm going to do that in every stitch, just to give it a little bit of a decorative edge on top. Of course, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Just so no more of that knit stitch thing. We're just slip stitching one time in every stitch all the way across the top until I get back to my starting point. It's a little easier than that knit stitch. And you can see it just puts that little bit of that line across the top just for decoration. So I'm going to keep doing a slip stitch in every stitch until I get back to my stitch marker. Alright, I have made it all the way around. Now that was round 14, that slip stitch round. I'm going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into my first slip stitch. And then I want to tie off, but I want to leave a longer tail so we can weave it in. You can go ahead and move that stitch marker if you want. So what I like to do is just take my hook. You can use a smaller hook if it's easier for you to maneuver around, but I'm just going to take it and kind of weave it in my basket. Just kind of around the top row here, back and forth. Let's see where I went at. You can do it through the slip stitch row or the row underneath, but I'm standing up, so I can't hardly look through the camera and do it, but this basket's so dang big, it's hard to see what you're doing. That's what I do. I just kind of weave it in like that. If you want to take it and if you have a bigger yarn needle, you can sew it in underneath the stitches, or you can weave it in underneath the stitches. Let me get a smaller hook here. Here's a K, which is a 6.5 hook. If you want to maybe take it and go under the stitches like that, and then pull it through, that might hide it. Yeah, I think that will hide it a little bit better than the way I was doing it before. I think that's what I'm going to do. See, it's all trial and error. So I'm grabbing like in between the stitch like that with a smaller hook, and then pulling it through. if you can see what I'm doing. Sit down here. This thing is so big. There we go. So that's how I'm going to hide my tail, and I'll do the same thing on the bottom too to hide it. So you just want to go ahead and hide your tail. You might have to kind of give it a little stretch, a little bit like that. I'm going to go ahead and finish hiding my tail. Alright, there it is. It's all finished. I think it turned out pretty cute. I hope that you enjoyed my tutorial. I hope you're able to follow along, and I hope it didn't hurt your hands too bad if you're using that big thick yarn. But as always, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to check out all my other tutorials. I have hundreds and hundreds, beyond hundreds, of awesome crochet tutorials. So until next time, have a good day.